Next to him is Representative Nathan Ballantyne. Nathan is a member from Lexington County, actually represents Lexington and Richland counties, and also serves on the Education Committee. And he is the newest member of the House Ethics Committee since we appointed him or elected him to that post last week, which means that it is Nathan's job to make sure the rest of us do what we're supposed to do from now on. So for all of you people who see things you don't like in the House, you should call Nathan Ballantyne. His number is 555. No, I'm kidding. That's right. Ethics reform. Anyway, it's great to have you two guys with us. Nathan, Jim, thank you for being on the show today. Appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
We want to talk about earmark reform, as I said just a minute ago.
The Speaker mentioned earlier how we are different than the federal government, and we're different in several ways, which is a good thing a lot of times. So, in particular with earmarks, quite simply, to summarize it as best we can in the short time we're giving, up there in Washington, a lot of times earmarks are slid in during conference committee back and forth. And that's how they kind of funnel a lot of your tax dollars to various port projects or special interest projects or whatever you want to call it or justify it as. Here in South Carolina, we do it a little bit different. Unfortunately, in the past, a lot of those items actually are slid in, if you will, up front initially in the budget process along the way. And unfortunately, there has not been a level of transparency that there will be this year. I was very excited I've been talking about this ever since I was elected, and I was glad to see Mr. Speaker and others get behind that so that we could actually have some real change this year, and that brought about the House rule, which is a good, important step for transparency for our taxpayers. And I'm fortunate. I'm working hard as you are. We'd like to get the legislation passed. No telling what will happen when we send it across the hall to the Senate, but certainly we want to do everything we can to open up government and to make sure that if there's going to be requests that don't come from an agency, that we at least have a representative or a senator's name on there, along with specific information about where the funding will go. It's a level of transparency I don't think we've had, certainly in the 4 years that I've been here, but probably quite some time before then.
You gave a great example when we were walking over here, Nathan, about what is an earmark. I mean, about why it's important that you have not only the member's name but a description. Why don't you tell the folks the example you gave me?
And I'll share this, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. A lot of the folks out there watching on TV, they probably have a tough time keeping up with the budget and knowing where money is going and what it's for. Well, I'll be honest and let you know you're not alone. A lot of my colleagues sometimes were sitting around going, now what specifically is this? And up until this year, there's been some ambiguity in a lot of it. And the example that the Speaker is mentioning is, we'll be voting on a particular item, and I'm just going to pick on I'm just going to mention a part of the state in general. I was raised in Taylor, so let's say we see a line item that says upstate water facility.
Or low state.
Or
state.
Midlands. Exactly, yeah. Thank you. Got to cover all the bases there. But you'll see a region, and then you'll see water treatment. And so, a lot of us would sit around and think, well, maybe that particular region has tried to look through local funds and exhausted all revenue possible or all ways to finance this, and maybe it's a needed sewer lines or water or something of that nature. And so, that might be something that we could support. What we don't know is maybe what it really could have been, and it could have been, for lack of a better word, a water slide park or a Frankie's Fun Park for a particular representative or senator, maybe to try to score some points back home. So this year we're going to ask for more detailed information, so we'll at least, not just you at home, but Coach Anthony, me, and others here will know exactly where your hard-earned dollars are going to go and whether we would support that or not. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I was going to add, I don't know if you've talked about the budget yet, and that's certainly a big item that'll probably be on a couple of weeks' shows to come here, but, with this year, we get different revenue forecasts, et cetera, and it's going to be a year where we've got to make some tough decisions, and one thing that I hope, and it seems to be a common sense thing as far as I'm concerned, but one thing I'm hoping we're going to see is, in the past, if you didn't have to put your name on there, it's a little bit easier to just say yes to everybody and their brother who are wanting things back home. But now, elected officials are going to have to say, hey, that's a worthy cause. It's not enough where I can fight for you right now in these tight budget times. Let's come back. And I think that's going to be one way as we take a step to slow down the spending that's been going on lately. I think we're going to be more, the Senate likes to claim they're the more deliberative body, but believe me, we do deliberate quite a lot in the House as well. And, I've only been here a couple of years, but the budget process is where we spend the majority of the time, not just on the floor, but in committees, Ways and Means, and others prior to that. We go to midnight sometimes we go past. I think this year we're going to spend a little bit more time than in the past because of, quite simply, I I got a feeling when we get the budget back from the Senate, there might be some things that don't have names on there and specific items. And with all due respect to my colleagues across the hall, but they have their rules, we have our rules, and so I've got a feeling there'll probably be a couple things that might not have a senator's name on there. And if not me, I know the Speaker or others will bring up the point of order, and we'll use the House rule, and we're going to have some votes and some discussions. And if I could take just a quick extra minute, as somebody, I kind of catch some grief a lot of time for some of my fiscal votes and so forth. I'm pretty much a tightwad. I think everybody knows that. But it's not to say that all earmarks are bad. And we've talked about that as well. What we simply want to do is just hear who is requesting the money and where that money is going and what it's about. And there are some things where we may need to spend some state dollars in local areas. But we want to have a discussion about it instead of just having read across the desk or something coming up and it's a roll call vote or something like that. We want to have a deliberative process. And I think this year the budget, we're going to spend some more time. I've already told my wife to not plan on me getting home anytime soon during that process. So.
I think it's going to lengthen it. I think it's going to bring more transparency, as Coach Anthony said.
One other measure I think that will come to play here real quick, I think sometime in April, our next campaign financial disclosure reports are going to be online for everybody to see. And you talk about, I'm already labeling this the year of transparency, which I think is an excellent thing for not just elected officials to be able to stand before the people we represent, but for the people in the state to see where's the money going, where's it coming, who's getting it, etc. And so, we're all learning. It's a new system for us. I might have to get my children at home to help me with the computer reports to get it done right, but it's a great way that we're opening up the books to state government a little bit more.
It is a very good thing to bring more and more transparency to the process, and I agree with you. Putting our spending reports online, I mean, they've always, I wouldn't want folks to think that they're not accessible. They've always been accessible. Right. You can call up and go get your photocopies of them now, but it'll be so much easier for folks to be able to get access to them. I just think it's a good thing, too. I agree with you on that. Now, related to the earmark reform is spending limitations, which is another issue that we've talked about getting done this year. The House last year passed a spending limitations bill that we've sent over to the Senate. I'd like to hear how you guys feel about spending limitations, both at the state level and at the local level. Nathan, we'll start with you.
Again, I'm a budget hawk. I'm tight with my money. To simplify it and not to speak too long, I think that we ought to treat our state dollars just like I treat my personal finances at home. Sometimes you have to say, honey, we can't spend more than X. Or sometimes I have to say, hey, I'd like to go play around.
Or sometimes honey says, Nathan, we can't spend more than X.
Thank you. Karen, if you're listening at home. And it comes down to, I think, needs and wants. And if you don't have the moral strength, if you will, for lack of a better word, to stay within your own boundaries, then I think we do need to. And I supported the cap for ourselves. At the local governments, that's where we're hearing a lot about it, on the county council levels and school boards, etc. We believe in home rule. We want to let them do their part, but at the same time, it'd be hypocritical for me to want a spending limitation locally and not here at the state level. So I've at least cleared that hurdle by putting one on ourselves. And I think it's needed because without that, something gets added and added and added, and there's no point where you just say, okay, enough's enough until the money runs out.
I have a question from Bill West of the Lexington County Chronicle for Representative Ballantyne. Do you anticipate anything of substance on health care costs to pass the House this session, or is this another sacred cow that will get little done and just let the federal government take the blame?
Interesting question from my friends out there in Lexington County. I believe just this week we're talking about small businesses.
Today.
Actually, we'll pick it up today. Good timing with the question. We're going to talk about ways where small businesses can make health care more affordable to them, where they don't get the benefits for the economies of scale, if you will. As far as, we do a lot of things in piecemeal fashion, which is just the way the system is. It's so hard. We have a 2-year period. We have 170 elected officials, and of course the governor to add in the equation. It's really hard for us to do what is needed, and that's some comprehensive efforts to be looked at. To be honest, we've got a few months before this cycle ends. I don't see much in the way of a comprehensive package being coming out of the House or the Senate. It may come out of our side, and it might not go to the Senate or clear the government.
I expect there'll be some conversations on a comprehensive package, but I think the bill that's being taken up today that helps, what it does is it allows small groups, small businesses to come together as groups
so that they can get the buying power of a very large company. I think that'll help a great deal with the cost of health care for small businesses, and we will be debating that on the floor here in just a couple of minutes, which brings me to my next point. In just a few minutes, we'll be on the House floor debating bills to take up legislation, and I think that bill in particular will be coming up here in just a little bit, and we'll be able to sit down and talk about that and debate that bill, and then tomorrow we'll be on immigration reform, and so it's going to be a pretty busy week for us this week in the House. The earmark reform legislation we've talked about has already been passed as a House rule, but we've got legislation pending that's going to follow it. So hopefully we're going to attempt to put that in not just as a House rule, but put it into permanent law as well. So I want to thank my guests who've been here with me today. Nathan Ballantyne,
Thanks, Speaker.
Richland, Lexington Counties. Great to have you with me. Republican, Richland, Lexington Counties. Good to have you here.